Good. Good afternoon. We're excited about getting started for our next preseason endeavor here this week in Philadelphia. In some ways, I'm looking for very similar things that I was looking for a week ago. There are a number of guys for a variety of reasons that will be getting their first opportunity to play this year. And so I'm looking for first opportunity to play like things. I'm looking for cleanliness in pre-snap situations and circumstance. And that's playing penalty-free on offense, executing shifts and motions with fluidity, and working with the demeanor that we want to work from a pre-snap standpoint on offense to make sure that we're communicating and adjusting and doing the things that we need to do in terms of dealing with that on the defensive side. And so we'll have some guys playing for the first time, and so I'll be looking for some of those things that I was looking for a week ago. In some other instances, I'll be looking for elevation in play, not only in terms of quality of play and technique, but also awareness, because, it's reasonable to expect individuals to take a step the more they get exposed to game-like circumstances. And so last week it was an exposure for some. It's reasonable to expect them to grow in terms of awareness relative to that exposure, to be more consistent in developing techniques in competitive play, for their talents to show, for them to play more fluid and faster now, having gained some experience. And so, such is the case this time of year. There's a bunch of little small, different agendas that go through your mind as you prepare to put a group into a stadium, particularly when you're working with 90 guys at different stages of development and in the mix of those guys. This will be the first game for the Eagles, and so we'll have an opportunity to be in another first game like scenario, and there's some benefit to that. But again, you expect guys to be better. I think it's reasonable to expect us to continually grow throughout this process, and you should see some significant things, like I mentioned. In terms of participation and who's scheduled to participate, it's going to be very similar to last week for a lot of the guys who you would consider frontline-like guys. You shouldn't expect an increased amount of participation for those guys. We're comfortable with what they were able to do last week and gain some in-game experience and exposure and communicate and so forth. And so we'll repeat that process, but not necessarily with an increased number of snaps. Like I mentioned, there'll be additions to that group who are getting some first game exposure. And so it'll be exciting to see some of those guys not only compete as individuals, but as a collective, and see our growth from that perspective. But again, not a lot of the final decisions have been made. Just like last week, man, we're working very much in a training camp-like mentality. We got to practice this afternoon. We're focused Steelers on Steelers. We'll get to Philadelphia Eagles tomorrow morning with tomorrow morning's work. Today, we're very much still in training camp mode, working iron on iron in an effort to improve our skill and our in-game awareness in the ways that you do this time of year. So after practice, we'll see who's available, who's not available to us from a health standpoint, who we choose to infuse that maybe we didn't choose to infuse in-game play last week, and kind of go from there and step into the stadium and play. I'm always excited about taking this group into a stadium. I expect growth. I expect to see it displayed. I expect it to perform well, and I'm always excited to watch the process. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Do you expect the quarterback division to be similar to Hall of Fame with Mason starting about a quarter and a half into Williams?
I do, yes.
You'll work on Philly tomorrow. Is it a huge increase of preparing for what they do compared to last year?
I'm really not concerned about what it is they do. This time of year, man, you focus on yourselves, how you adjust and how you communicate to global football issues. And I really kind of like the sight unseen element of preseason football because it really tests their rules and their ability to play based on rules and less about preparation. So it really displays understanding on both sides of the ball, whether we're adjusting to the schemes and things that they do on offense, or whether we're adjusting trying to block the fronts and schemes that they present on defense. I think that's one of the things that you really enjoy about the unknown element of preseason play. It's an opportunity for them to display understanding of rules.
Given all the guys you're looking at for that number 2 position in the quarterback room, I mean, you definitely stick to the script of playing time plan going in, or if you feel like someone's getting in a groove, you maybe adjust and see how he does with some more series?
We always have a hardcore plan, and we're always willing to adjust as we see fit in game. And that's not only with that circumstance, but that's with any circumstance. I intended for Mason to play 2 series last week. I wanted to give him another one because we turned the ball over in an exchange, and I didn't like the feeling of that, and so he played three series. We always have a plan. We're always light on our feet based on what transpires in game, and I just think that's just good football.
Like what you said at the outset about putting an onus and importance on pre-snap motions and alignments and the kind of things that oftentimes associate themselves with the way we talked about in Matt Canada's offense. Is that even more important this year because Matt is in charge, and how has that gone so far in practice?
No, it's just things that you focus on this time of year. You don't want to be an easy team to beat, and being an easy team to beat on a play-in and play-out basis is losing the down before it starts. And so lack of cleanliness on offense, 2nd and 10 going to 2nd and 15 because of pre-snap penalties, or lack of adjustability or communication on defense where at the snap of the ball somebody's uncovered or a gap is unaccounted for. And so regardless of scheme or whether or not Matt's new, that's always on my agenda this time of year. It's just good development.
When you talk about infusing guys who didn't get a chance to play last week, I mean, other than the new guys signed, I mean, is that more like a rookie like Freiermuth, or do you want to see vets who are new to you like Ingram and Trey Turner in this setting?
It's a variety of people that fall into that category. There were some veteran guys that I removed from the process last week just because I wanted to have more exposure to young people. And so those guys will have an opportunity to get in the game. There's guys that are working their way back from injury or different levels of injury, and this is just a step in their road to recovery. They'll get an opportunity to play. Or it's a young guy who's getting the first exposure. There's a lot of people that fall into that category. And regardless of their status, I'm excited about seeing them in stadium play.
Mike, you just mentioned guys working their way back from injury. Kevin Dotson has taken more team reps this week. Were you happy with the way that he approached getting back to full health and getting back to participating in team drills?
What do you mean?
Did you like the effort that he was putting in individual work and working with trainers?
I didn't have direct eyes on what he was doing with trainers or an individual. I got eyes. And again, like in most instances, I focus my energy on those that are working because we have people assigned to those who are less than available. They do a great job of driving them and making sure they're having positive days on the road to recovery. I was pleased with the reports that I got from the people that had direct hands on him. But I really don't start laying eyes on guys until they're back and working.
Thoughts, and even in the earlier part of the offseason, the OTAs, that type of thing, were you happy with the way you approached that as a second-year guy?
Man, as in most circumstances, we were working remotely, so I didn't have eyes on many of the guys due to the COVID circumstances and things, labor-related to COVID protocols and things of that nature. We've all been somewhat more remote in this environment, so don't have a lot to add regarding that.
Mike, if a few of those guys who are coming back this week are offensive linemen, how important is it that they develop a little bit of chemistry if they are able to play together this week?
It's just a part of the process. That's expected.
You mentioned a possible update today with James Washington. Do you have any more?
Yeah, he got evaluated yesterday. He may miss a day or two, but we're not expecting him to miss a significant amount of time with the personal injuries that he's dealing with.
Mike, Keith Butler confirmed that TJ is not working team because of contract negotiations. That would seem rather unique. Would you admit that that's unique, and could you take us through your thought process on the good and the bad of this?
Not unique at all, really. That negotiation process is going to run its course. Some run their courses faster than others. If I remember correctly, Cam Hayward had less than 100% participation when he was in a similar circumstance a short time ago. Again, like I say, I like to focus my energies on the guys that are working, and I'm less concerned about the guys that aren't, whether it's contractually related or injury related. At this time of the year, man, I'm all eyes on the guys that are working, and one man's misfortune or inconvenience is an opportunity for another. We got plenty of days ahead, particularly in circumstances where guys are veterans and they know what they're doing. Oftentimes you're thinning the herd and you're getting more of an exposure to others. I'm excited about the exposure I've been able to get with Melvin Ingram, for instance, because he's not been participating. And Melvin's had an opportunity to work with the first group and really gain cohesion with some of those guys. That's where I focus my energies. The business is going to run its course. He's highly conditioned. Our strength staff is working with him. He's getting in good work days. The process is running its course. In the meanwhile, man, I'm focused on the guys that are working and their level of productivity and what type of days they've been having. It's funny, I challenged Melvin Ingram this morning in the team setting. We're coming after Melvin Ingram today. With tackle over, out net space with some big tight ends like Zach Gentry. Melvin's a run game bully, so we want to get to know him a little bit today.
This runs its course till September 12th. Is TJ the type of guy who can just jump in there week one? And
I'm not into the hypotheticals. You know, we'll deal with today and then we'll deal with tomorrow. Tomorrow, we can talk all day about hypotheticals relative to that issue and others.
Mike, did you know Ingram was healthy when you signed him, or is that something you wanted to see here in the spring and up to this point?
Who, Melvin? Man, we had no reservations about his health. We understand that he had an injury last year, but that was handled through the physical process in terms of examining him before we signed him. I've just been excited about getting to know him as a player and looking at his skill set and figuring out ways that we can infuse him into what it is that we do. It's been a fun process. He's a football lover. He's a competitor. He likes to work. He's fitting in nicely with the guys, and so it's been a fun process.
Make the decision or made a decision about TJ's status practicing. Is that something he approaches you, or is that organizationally, Kevin?
You know, I'm not going to peel back the curtain in regards to that. It's unnecessary, and all it does is add to the brush fire. And we're just going to focus on the ball.
You used Melvin on both sides. You used Highsmith on both sides throughout this camp. Is that kind of the flexibility, having a veteran guy like that?
I just think flexibility helps us, particularly when you're playing with a guy like TJ. You know, you fast forward, you got all three guys. Everybody needs to be versatile for a lot of reasons. TJ attracts a lot of attention. Moving him around means that you got to move around people that play with him, and so that collective versatility within that group is required.
Like even without TJ, without Cam or Tua and some other guys in the depth chart, seemed to do a nice job of getting pressure on the passer last week against Dallas. Granted, they didn't have all their starters either, but did you like what you saw from the depth up front, the front seven, and what are you looking for this week from them?
I did, and that's what I mean when I say I focus my energies on the guys that are playing. Man, one man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. We got some quality young players that are battling for positions, that want to display growth. You know, you shouldn't assume that the guys are the same as they were a year ago. I've been pleased with the growth and development of Carlos Davis, for example. And so that's a guy that's had some elevated varsity reps, if you will, because of the lack of participation of some of the more veteran guys. And, man, I like some of the things that he's displayed. Man, he ran a quality game and had a quarterback hit on an interception by Donovan on the third down play in the Hall of Fame game. We talk about the interception, but rush and coverage works together, and it's a component of good collective defensive play, and that's just an example of growth in that specific area. I thought that group did a nice job, and I'm excited about watching them take a step this week.
Like, if you had a chance to get to know Trey Turner a little bit better and what some of his strengths have been?
I am. It's been good to watch him work and see that he's a communicator. He's embraced the stage that he's in his career. Although he's new to us, he's doing a real good job of communicating with younger players like Kendrick Green in terms of coordinating cohesion and just talking general NFL football and life with him. Oftentimes you can see those two guys working after practice, reviewing whatever transpired collectively between them during the course of a workday, and that developing relationship is being initiated by Trey. I appreciate that. I expect him to do his job and do his job well. I'm appreciative when I see him doing the things that add value to us in an intangible way, and he's shown that. He's been a football lover. He's enjoying the process. He's getting to know his teammates, and he's adding value to us in informal ways like that.
Najee would get 4 opportunities to prepare in this preseason setting. But did you see enough from him last week that maybe you scale back the snaps or the touches in a preservation effort?
No.
Mike, here we are 1 week away from first cuts. How much is this game weighted in your assessment of these guys versus the culmination of what they've done to this point and their potential?
This upcoming game, It depends on what happens in it, to be honest with you. You know, somebody could do something extraordinarily well and change the weight of that performance, or they can do something extraordinarily bad. You know, I probably won't have perspective on that until we actually play the game, and that's why we play the game.
When we started camp, you said that Kendrick Green being at the top or with the starters meant that he was starting the first preseason game, the Hall of Fame game. He's continued to work with the starters. Are we to read anything more into that, or is this?
I wouldn't.
Anything else?
Yeah, Mike, with the 2 weeks between the fourth preseason game and the start of the season, which I think is quite a bit longer than usual, does that change your plan in terms of player participation in, say, games 3 and 4?
I don't know that it does. It's about our collective and individual development in that process. And so, you know, I hadn't thought about that time off in terms of determining participation. I'm looking more at participation being determined by readiness displayed through this process.
Is Green impressed you with maturity physically, or what kind of ways as a rookie that he?
It's a work in progress. I do like his level of maturity, and I think that's why he's in the position that he's in to be a viable candidate for play. But day to day, he's experiencing the normal challenges that this process presents to a young guy, and he's doing a nice job of learning. And like I tell him and all the others, it's his job, man, to eliminate problems quickly and hopefully get to the stage where he's eliminating problems before they happen. That's varsity at this level.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.